Yeah.
All right, cool. So I'm starting the. I don't know how long the recording's going to go though, man. So I don't think it'll do the 2 hours. Um, but anyways, so yeah. So what I'm going to teach you really is how to kind of create a system, whether it's you doing it, getting a staff member to do it, or both. Starting, yourself, and then eventually getting a staff to do it. Like most of the guys that I've done this same kind of training call with, they end up hiring someone else, and it just depends really, because if you're not at that point where you can do that yet, that's fine. You can still implement these strategies yourself, obviously at a lower cost because you're not paying someone to do it,
Right.
and somewhat get the same results or get to the point where you can pay somebody, because once again the ROI is so big. My marketer has been and will probably continue to be for the longest time my highest paid employee, because aside from their ability to get us new business, they help retain, they help close, and they help get our agency to our goals almost every single month. So
Mm.
they get paid better, they get bonus better, and really, if it wasn't for them, like we probably wouldn't have as much business production as we do, because I can close, but I don't do the marketing. My marketer does.
Mm. That
I
makes
train them
sense.
to do it, but then they make it all their own, and they kind of excel from there. So
Wow.
um, so yeah, so to kind of start with that, what we do is we buy leads. And by leads, I'm literally just buying business information. These are not necessarily people that are shopping for insurance. So it's a very inexpensive lead. We buy them from a list provider called Caldwell Lists. And so I'm going to give you this file. I'm going to send it to you via Facebook message, man. So give me a second.
Okay.
That's the first document I'm going to send you. And it's just a Word document. It's got my providers, or the guy that we connect with, name, number, email. His name is Peter Lacknicht at Caldwell Lists. And just to give you a ballpark measure, you can probably get 1,000 leads that you can delineate by SIC code, employee size, gross revenue size, zip code, a couple other things probably. I think he tells you like all the different things you can separate your lead order by. And then
Mm.
what he does is he generates a count. So based on the parameters you gave him, they give you an Excel, and it gives you a breakdown. Okay, we have this many leads in this category, this SIC code, and then you just choose the ones you want to however many you want, and he gives you a roundabout number. But for rounding purposes, 1,000 leads is probably going to run at or around or probably under $200.
Wow.
Super inexpensive. So
Man.
those 1,000 leads, right now, it just comes down to how do you reach out to them, how do you contact them, and for us, mainly, it was calling. So
Mm.
for me at the time, I was already semi established as a farmer's agent for 4 years in.
Mm-hmm.
So I took the leap and just hired a part-time caller. I did a little bit of the calling myself, but at that point, like we were already growing so much that, or at least so established that the service work was, I would rather focus on, retaining the clients and hiring someone else to help us build more clients. So
Right.
um, I hired a part-time marketer. Let me see. I think I have a document that outlines this. Let me just make sure.
Okay.
Okay, so I don't really have it here, but what I did was when I first hired them, I gave them this leads list, and I gave them this Excel sheet that I'm going to give you. It's a call tracking sheet.
Mm-hmm.
Just added that to the Facebook message as well. And this is a macro-enabled Excel sheet that does a lot of things. As they call, they can click these buttons to delineate the different dispositions on the call. So that way they're not writing a whole bunch of notes. They just write the notes for the calls that are important, right?
Mm.
So was it a no answer? Was it a disconnect, a callback, left voicemail, X date, or an appointment? And so then at the end of the day or the end of the shift, you'll get the total number of calls made, the percentages of all of those different types of dispositions. So that way you can delineate where the problems or improvements can happen in that calling procedure. A lot of people always ask me too, well, what do you have them say, or what do they do? So I'm going to give you an email and an appointment setting script. I'm also sending you to Facebook message. And those are really just like starting points. I'm pretty sure my caller says a lot of similar things, but not the exact things that are on this sheet, and it just depends what works for them, what rolls off the tongue better, what makes it easier to get around gatekeepers. But the most important thing is just having the right character on the phone. If they're positive, they sound like they're smiling on the phone, and they're very they know how to say the key words that are going to get them thinking, whether maybe it was good timing, or they mentioned a product that they were just having a conversation about that they need to start shopping for or something. That's what makes it easier to get around certain gatekeepers on the phone to be able to effectively get either an appointment or an X date. Because sometimes, you know, we call them and it's a good opportunity, but they want to wait until X date time. So
Right.
you say, okay, well, if now's not a good time, you know, can we call you closer to your expiration date? When does your policy renew? Is it okay if we call you 60 to 90 days out, so we have enough time to, you know, meet with you, get the information and quote it and stuff to trust for it. So that part of the conversation is really important, because one of the goals that I would give my caller on an hourly basis, so at the end of a 4-hour shift, we would get an average of hopefully one appointment every hour or one appointment every 2 hours. So 2 hours, 2 appointments a day, all right? And hopefully if they're calling enough, because a lot of those conversations are actually going to be really short, that they're getting at least 5X dates per hour, hopefully. If they're even getting, you know, a few X dates per hour and averaging one appointment every other hour, that's still really good if they're just starting out and they've never done this. If they're more experienced, and yeah, that should be a pretty solid average. And if they're not hitting those, but they're still getting decent numbers, it's probably because they're not calling enough. So you can incorporate a dialer. I don't. I have my staff just manually dial, just because, well, for one, she's that good, but two, it really comes down to having those quality conversations and how you can keep that conversation going to hopefully get either one of two things, an appointment or an X date. And those are the only two things that go into our, in this case, we're using agency Zoom now, but we were using Pipedrive. Those are the only two things that go into those systems. From that leads list, she would also color code them, because if they needed a callback or something, she wouldn't necessarily put it in the system until she either got an X date or an appointment out of it. So even though they said, oh, well, he's not in, call him back, she would call back. But if it ended up being a not interested or something else that was not an X date or an appointment, then she would just leave it. But if it's an X date or an appointment, then it would go into our system, so that way we can properly mark it from there.
That makes sense.
Any questions on that?
No, like so far so good.
And so obviously what we do is not a secret. Anybody can do it. I think a lot of it is the consistency. Having a good list really does help, but it's not going to, you know, businesses are going to answer during this normal business operating hours. So
right.
The reason why that's more effective for us is because you don't want to be calling someone to offer them auto or home insurance. And I found that out really fast with farmers. So, you know, the only other way you're going to get good at selling a lot of personal lines is just by referrals. That's why Fully Covered is good at rounding out our agency. Even though we're 70% commercial, I don't market personal lines. I have loan officers market me and then get me in the door with their clients.
Right.
And then, of course, yeah, you'll get the client referrals, but that's expected, assuming you're doing a good job. So on the commercial side, same thing, except I don't have anybody that will regularly refer me commercial business except for people in a BNI chapter. So if you have not joined BNI, or you have the ability to join BNI for the commercial specific seat, that's another way that feeds into this system, because a lot of my business comes from either what my marketer creates or what BNI gives me as a referral. And when you do BNI the right way, I mean, I've been doing it for close to 4 years now, but when you do it the right way, like the last 2 months of 2019, I mean, I got enough referrals to write, I think it was between 50 and 75,000 in premium. So, you know, my return on BNI in 2019 alone was like 1,300%. That was just BNI. So that's not counting what, you know, my marketer here does. So that's the goal, is to get somebody calling, to get somebody in front, you know, get you in front of the business owner. So even if that's you early on, that's fine. You get to really, you know, refine and get better at what you want your potential employee doing on the calls for you, because you've already done it yourself. And that's exactly what I did. So I can't take all the credit though, because she's just got a way better attitude than I do. But at the same time, that's part of it. You get somebody with a good attitude. You know how to kind of talk to people, even if it is a gatekeeper. having that karma and that character to get around them is going to help big, because once you're friends or you have them on your side, even if you're not competitive, even if you don't end up doing business with you, they're always going to vouch for you and getting you connected to who you need to talk to so you can get in front of them and eventually create that relationship.
Right.
So part of my process too, like 99% of the time, or as much as possible, unless the business owner just, is too busy or just wants to do things differently, which is rare, is to get that face-to-face appointment. Because there's times where I have businesses say, well, let's just schedule a call so you can get the information. And I say, that's fine. But once I have a proposal, I am coming to meet you. And usually they're not going to tell me no.
Right.
Just because it's like, all right, well, you're bringing me something that's probably going to be valuable to me one way or another. It's either going to save me money or protect me better or whatever's important to them. So that is definitely part of the process that's really important.
Do you ever do face-to-face before you get their information?
Yeah, that happens a lot too. So,
Okay.
and that usually makes it easier to get the information that's needed, because what we do is we set the expectation on the call for the appointment to have their current policy information readily available to review with the agent. And some people have it, right, but they're not necessarily comfortable sharing with me everything. And so I kind of let them know. I kind of ease it with them once I'm in front of them. It's like, look, it doesn't matter if I see what price you're paying. I mean, there's no like secret behind the scenes thing. I mean, honestly, I need to know most of the time for two reasons. Well, actually three reasons. One, so I don't waste your time. Two, I don't waste my time. And three, there are some carriers that need to know where they're at, and they can tell me off the get-go if I give them a target premium that we need to beat, where they can tell me right off the bat whether they're going to be able to compete or not. So that way, once again, it goes back to the not wasting your time, not wasting my time thing. And that way I know exactly whether I'm going to be coming with something that's, valuable to you, or whether I'm just going to be coming to waste your time because I don't know what you pay and I have something super expensive, and, and sometimes that happens. So I'll sometimes, if I get a good vibe from them, but they just, I don't know, they don't want to share with me that's fine. I can't force them. But I'll tell them, I was like, look, I'm going to base my proposal off of our conversation, then. It's not going to be based off of what you have on your proposal. And the reason for that are on your policy. And the reason for that is because right now you are going to tell me what's important to you. And that is what really should be covered on your policy anyways. So today, for example, this is probably one of my craziest examples in the last 6 months. Met with a building owner 2 months ago. He's referred to me by a public adjuster. He's actually in our B&I. And at the time that I met with him, he did not have his policy on hand. And I thought he was kidding around, but he told me, he was like, I pay $2,300. Now, let me tell you what the risk was, though. He has 2 different addresses that are right next to each other. He's got 4 or 5 total buildings. Most of them house some sort of auto repair, or I think one of them was a countertop type contractor guy. And then the 5th building that was in that group of buildings was a gentleman's club. Okay?
Oh man!
And I mean, there was nothing crazy.
I think so. You posted that in the text.
Yeah, because I was looking for a carrier that would do it, man. And I found one, but anyways, so I sit down with the guy and I'm like, okay, so you have this policy with who again? Oh, I have it with Farmers. I'm like, dude, I was a Farmers agent for 8 years. I know Farmers will not cover that building, man. There's got to be something wrong. But he didn't have his policy on him. So I just took all the information, put together the quotes. I met with him today in the morning. And, of course, I have one policy for his auto shop because he's one of the tenants in one of his own buildings. And then I have a policy for his LLC that owns all the buildings. And then I have that one policy for the one building that is the gentleman's club, just because it didn't make sense to put all of them on a surplus lines. It was more expensive than my actual setup. So anyways, I go over with him.
Real quick, so how do you even know to break it up in that manner?
Okay, so that just comes with experience, man. For example, I know that if I turn around and I try to quote, I probably could have gotten a better price somewhat than what I was coming up with on an admitted market, but the admitted market had a complete BOP for the building, the liability, and everything else that came with it. Business income, signs, everything's already included. Whereas my surplus lines quote for his gentleman's club building is just building and liability, and that's it.
Mm.
So the only thing that makes it really expensive compared to the other policies or the other policy is that there's taxes and fees included. And I didn't charge him a fee just because I was quoting all this other stuff. I mean,
right.
So it was funny because I presented everything to him. My premium is borderline 10 grand. He tells me he's paying $2,500. I'm like, all right, well, let's see what you got. I mean, let's take a look at it.
Serious.
So he has one policy written in only his name. So there, nowhere on this policy is there the LLC that actually owns all the buildings.
Oh my goodness.
It is a real estate policy with farmers, so there's no instance or coverages that are related to an auto service type business like garage keepers and things like that.
Oh man.
And the buildings, for the most part, are a little underinsured, not terrible, but they had guaranteed replacement costs, so I wasn't concerned with that. But at the very end of the policy, it says the classifications of these buildings are office buildings. And I'm like, dude, these are office buildings, bro.
Man.
So he looks at it, he's like, yeah, shit, man, you're right. And so I told him, I was like, look, man, I know I'm asking you to spend more, but let me ask you, what do you get in rent here? And so he tells me, and I'm like, look, yeah, you got to spend a little bit more. You're not going to be able to pocket more. But now you have coverage if you wreck someone's car. Now you have coverage for if there's a fight that happens right outside this gentleman's club because two idiots got drunk or something.
Right.
Because, you know, if your tenant doesn't have insurance, which I hope you require them to have it, because that's part of the requirement here, is that if their attorney or something brings you into the lawsuit, your policy can either defend you or remove you off the case if need be, just based on how you have it set up. He's like, man, the agent like never talked to me about that stuff. So the stuff I'm going over with you right now, I mean, that's like a little bit more value add that would take way more trainings to go through, because part of it is experiencing it, and part of it is just running into it for the first time and asking that question. So that's why you still, I mean, I'm not a pro, but I've ran into enough shit that if I don't know what I'm doing, I want to make sure I know what I'm doing. I ask in the group. But other than that, that's the reason why I sound like so much of a pro, because I've ran into it enough times where I've either done the research or I've done the work to figure it out, or I've asked people like you would ask me, right?
Right.
That know what they're doing, how to do it, and then I learn it and I move from there. So same thing, you know, what I teach you here, you probably won't ever have to ask again, but now you have a system, now you know what to do or where to go to find those resources, and that's exactly what I do. The only reason why I write more than anybody else who's learning for me to do this is because of the systems I have in place, and because I just don't stop working. Some people are either lazier or just do less work, or their schedule's different, and that's fine. So the main thing that I'm trying to teach you, at least out of these 2 hours, because we're already 30 minutes in, is understanding to develop that system. If you have these goals, these requirements, even on a part-time caller, if you have someone that's averaging an appointment an hour, 5x dates an hour, you're gonna get that ROI really, really fast. Especially as an independent, because you're just gonna close more business. And then of course, who knows, a majority of those people that you're probably getting opportunities with is because they're not happy with their current situation, and you're gonna give them something that they don't get, aside from maybe a better deal. So I have some people like question, like, man, $400 for 2 hours, that, you know, like how can I be sure that, you know, it'll be effective? I'm like, think of it this way, dude. You sell one solid commercial policy, you make that money back. You don't even have to hire a caller to actually implement some of this stuff and make use of the resources and the time to make that money back that you're paying me as a coach, right?
Right.
But on the flip side, there's other people that I mean, I paid a lot more than $400 to learn some of this stuff. I had a guy come from Farmers. He was like the top commercial producer. He came for 6 months straight, and every one of his visits paid $500.
Oh man.
And it's not that whole lot. I mean, it was $3,000, but you know, I was making that off of maybe 1 or 2 sales that he was teaching me how to close on and figure out how to do it and develop these systems even better. So what I took was his system, and then I just turned it into more of a, how do we say, more of a modern setup. So even though we still cold call and stuff, I don't go in person and fill out this coverage, you know, sheet and stuff by pen. This is what I use. I want to show you this. So I use JotForm for a lot of internal and external forms that I send to my referral partners and stuff. Honestly, any kind of form service you can use, but I got a really good deal with them. So for 2 years or something. So that's why I'm still using them. But if you look at this link I sent you, this is what we use internally to fill out a quote sheet for most businesses. And then, of course, there's probably supplemental applications and things that may follow depending on the client. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But this will ask most of the questions you're going to need for pretty much any business.
Mm.
And then depending on the type of business or what we put in the description of operations, that's when we get a little bit more hairy depending on what we need to do for them.
Makes sense.
My marketer is so effective that sometimes she's been able to send this to the prospect and they fill it out. And when they click submit, I mean, it gets sent to us in an email. So all those answers get submitted to us, and then we have them right away. We can start working the quote.
Man.
So it's super effective. Like if you've got a business owner who's just like, man, I need some help, dude, but I'm so busy, I can't meet, or they reschedule with you and be like, look, let me just send you a form. I'm going to send you a link. It's an online form. Whenever you get a chance, fill it out. And if we need more information, we'll follow up. But if not, I'll call you back with a quote when I got it ready. And usually that's like, holy shit, okay, that easy? All right, send it to me. So sometimes we'll get people that'll do that. It's not very often, but it does happen.
Gotcha.
But we use this because I don't like typing like in a Word document or something like that and then potentially losing it or putting the stuff in notes.
Right.
But sometimes once we've already filled out this form and there's more specific stuff that you need to take down, well then yeah, you have no other option.
Are you familiar with Survey Gizmo?
Yeah, so we use Survey Gizmo for our ads. You can use that as well.
Okay.
I just found this service before I bought into Survey Gizmo, and I locked it in for 2 years. So
Gotcha.
it was like $250 for 2 years, so super cheap.
Oh man. Oh, like,
oh yeah, super cheap, man. I mean, JotForm is really inexpensive. Survey Gizmo, there's so many more uses to it. So I did the full pay on that too, but it was like $1,000.
Right.
And that was for 1 year.
Yeah,
so the JotForm,
exactly.
Yeah, the JotForm is more of like a simpler version of what we're using just to get information. So I do the same thing. I'm gonna share with you my other link, and this is for a personal lines quote. I get a lot of clients too that are prospects that'll be like, hey, I need a quote. And I'll be like, well, you can either call me with the information or you can fill this out. And I just send it to them. When they fill it out, they click submit. We get it in an email. We can start working it right away.
That makes sense.
I do the same thing for referral partners. Oh shit, with it. I'm just gonna send it to you just so that way you can see how we do it.
Mm-hmm.
You may already have something similar to this, especially since you're in the fully covered and stuff. But we use this because I have like 8 or 9 loan officers that basically have this bookmarked for the most part. We're trying to get more. What's it called? More loan officers to actually use this form properly, but it's okay. We get this and we send this to them, and they can send us or upload their quote request right into this form. And when they submit, it goes to the entire team rather than them having to worry about who to email it to or whatever.
Oh, that's good.
And it gets us the information we need, because a lot of times I'll get a loan officer that says, hey, well, here's their name and their address. I'm like, dude, I need their date of birth. I need this.
Right.
And that.
Oh, yeah.
So,
no, you're not the only one for sure.
Yeah. So this will kind of like force them to give us what we really need.
Mm-hmm.
Or at least to upload the file of stuff that we need. So
that makes sense.
Anyways, that's kind of getting outside the realm of commercial, but still similar service that we use to streamline our processes here, man.
Right. I like
Okay, cool. Sorry, man, I got like some crazy emails.
Oh, you're good. You're good.
All right, so does that kind of answer some questions as to how I set up those processes, man?
Yeah.
Okay.
It does.
So now I'm going to give you a little bit more value and I kind of developed this just recently, but I also used it a lot. Well, underdeveloped, but still used it a lot with farmers as well. I'm going to give you some other files. The titles of these files are, some of this will actually help you because you're also independent. So like this first one some of the carriers. Okay, wait, never mind. This is not helpful. Never mind. This one's not it. Okay, so I already sent you the email quote script. Okay, so I've got commercial prospecting tips, discovery questions, thoughts, and notes, and important coverages and endorsements. I'm going to just send you some documents like that. I've used this for some of my trainings in the program that you've probably heard about, which is Fully Covered Platinum. So I'm giving you some of that right now. I'm not giving it all to you, but I'm giving you a lot of it because you're a good dude and I like you, man.
Appreciate that.
But like a lot of this stuff too, so a lot of it is common sense. There's probably some nuggets in here too that'll make some difference. For example, one thing that we run into a lot. What's up? Oh, someone who has, like, for example, a surplus or not admitted lines of business, and they just renewed within the last 3 months. We usually tell them, hey, man, it's better if you kind of wait till you're outside of that first quarter so you're not losing money. If you kind of understand that, when the 25% is earned, they mean it. There's no prorated return. So
right.
As soon as you buy a surplus lines carrier policy and they want to cancel the next day, they're not getting anything back. So we usually tell them, hey, if you have a surplus lines, let's wait, till you're outside of that 3 or 4 month period, and then that way we can help you switch or whatever without any serious repercussions.
That's pretty valid. That way, like, it's a smooth process for everybody.
Yes, exactly. So, wait, give me a second. What the heck?
Do you ever I guess, do you use what is it, follow-up edge?
Say that one more time.
Do you use a follow-up edge?
Oh, follow-up engine?
Yeah, well, engine.
No,
I'm sorry.
I have not actually.
Okay.
And the only reason why is because, to be honest with you, after the first 6 months of running leads for most of our loan officers, I developed relationships in such a different way that, I still send them leads, but most of them were like, nah, you don't have to send me leads anymore, dude. It's all good, But some of them are like, no, this is good, just because even if we are not able to get anything off of it, we want to develop our database.
That makes
sense.
I
still run leads, but I don't have any use for follow-up engine because a lot of them are not really complaining. They're just like, hey, man, you've already proven yourself. Your staff are fast or whatever. You guys are taking care of our clients. And so we literally get 90+% of almost every loan officer that we work with's business.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there, the only issues that we run into is whenever they try to give, another agent at least a chance for a week or two. So we got some pretty loyal ones, but
that's good.
We could definitely jump back into the follow-up engine and probably add, double on our loan officers. But right now we're good. So I'd rather be focusing more of my efforts on the commercial just because, dude, we were at home policies all day. And my dad was laughing the other day because he issued 3 policies under $400 a year. Brand new homes, bro. I mean, they're not going to make us any money. So
that's so crazy. That's so crazy.
Yeah.
So, I guess with the commercial email, do you just manually just send out all your emails to the
so
prospect?
That email is sent out for when we have connected with the business owner. They're not quite ready to set up an appointment. They're like, oh, why don't you email me some information? And so this is what my staff will send, because it's like, no, dude, we want to meet with you, or we want to get to know your business. We want to talk with you. So if you don't want to give us the information over the phone, which is fine, we typically don't, prefer that. We prefer to meet in person and get to know the person, get to know the business. And that way we develop that relationship from the prospecting stage rather than from the binding stage. That way, when I come back with my proposal, you already know who I am. You already know why I'm coming. You know that I'm coming to probably deliver you some sort of value to your business based on our previous conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And it just makes it easier to do business with me should I have something of value for you.
So you only, I guess you only prospect in your area then. If you're meeting up with
most of the time, yes. So I'll get referrals though for out of state stuff, or we do prospect in New Mexico because literally it's 30 minutes that way. So we'll call over there, but sometimes I'll pull zips that are like in Albuquerque. We drove to, what was it, Albuquerque or Albuquerque? We drove to Albuquerque a couple months ago. We didn't end up getting the business, but it was big enough for us to make the trip because it was a dealership and it was like borderline 30,000-40,000 in premium.
So you drive for the big ones for sure.
Yeah,
Okay.
definitely. I mean, but then there's some that I don't even drive for or do anything for other than, communicate effectively by email. And some of those are our bigger clients too. So like the guys I just had lunch with today that want to introduce me to more of, their oil field friends. I mean, they only pay about 15,000-16,000 a year. It's still a lot for them because it was brand new business, but these guys are doing like millions. So.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's pretty solid for a new business too, man.
Well, I mean, when you get into the oil business, as soon as you make a good connection, it's either go and make a whole lot, or you're gonna die really fast.
Understood.
In their case, they had a good relationship, so they had a couple companies start buying parts from them, giving them a percentage of their purchase orders, and they went from doing like $500,000 the first couple months. I think this next year, this year, they're going to jump to anywhere between 30 to 50 million. So yeah, it's going to be big.
Man, that's freaking awesome.
Yeah. But it's all about those relationships. And the same thing goes for the commercial. So now they're wanting to get me in like with some of their clients. It's like now I have a chance to, close policies that are hundreds of thousands of dollars in premium, or in some cases, millions of dollars in premium.
Oh, man. That's freaking awesome.
I know. I hope something comes of it one way or another. We'll do something. It'll be worthwhile.
What was the biggest policy you've written so far?
Individual policy, I would say we have like a commercial auto that's about 52, something like that. But like, for example,
you do a lot of packages together.
Yeah, so like the entire package for that particular business, for example, we have all their properties, we have their vehicles, their general liability. I mean, they're paying right around 100,000, 110,000 a year.
Yeah, solid.
Yeah. And it really just depends on the risk, man. Like I have a general contractor who does probably half as many receipts. So he's big. I mean, he's like $3.2 million contractor.
Man.
His vehicles are $17,000 a year. His building is like $4,000 or $5,000 a year. It's not really expensive. His general liability and his umbrella is like $24,000 a year. So, man, he's not really paying close to what they are, but that other business does like $7 to $9 million in receipts. So,
damn.
Yeah.
That's solid.
a lot of those bigger ones, which is funny, came off of this exact, program and process that we set up to just market, man, just cold call. I mean, at first, we got a lot more X dates than appointments, but we would get that consistency of even one appointment a day. I mean, think about it, dude. If you had a brand new caller and in the first 2 weeks or at the end of the first week, they start getting appointments and they average in that second week, one appointment a day off a 4-hour shift every day. Let's say you're doing, I'm going to do some hard calculations here for you. So I never paid minimum wage. I paid $9 an hour because I really wanted someone that was going to come in here and kick butt.
Right.
4 hours a day for 10 days, $360. They gave me 5 appointments. Obviously, with farmers, my closing ratio was closer to 20-30%. So let's say I closed 2 out of those 5. I was gonna make more than $360.
For sure.
Pay that back. You know what I mean? So it was just a law of numbers at first. Yeah, there's definitely that investment or whatever. And even if you're doing it yourself, it's just the investment of time, right? I'm not gonna sit here and try to market to personal if I've already quoted everything that I have to quote. Like right now, you probably have a little bit more time than maybe I do, but and that's okay. So you can probably take some time to do some of these calls. But if you have the funds, pay somebody. Just pay somebody to call for you, and you give them these scripts, you give them the strategies, you give them the goals, and you make it easy for them and make it enjoyable. It has to be something that they really want to do and are okay with doing. And you'll see, man, like you'll be so busy you won't have time to really try anything else or get distracted. I mean, there was a time where, well, there's multiple times where I'd have to tell my staff to like, hey, all right, let's slow down the calls. I don't have time to, you know, be in all these appointments and get all the quotes done. And at the time, and even still till now, like we're okay. We get enough volume into where we still have a semi-small team, and we were really tight. We have 3 people here in the office. But we're doing, you know, 2 main producers are doing, you know, over $100,000 a month. So
that's solid.
Yeah, first 12 months we finished. Well, we haven't even finished this 12th month, but we're already out about 1.3 million.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
But a lot of that is commercial. I mean, like we get, you know, especially the first 6 months, we were really, really heavy on the personal line side. So our transaction count was like 30 to 60 binds a month. But even then, our commercial premium has now equated about 70% of our overall book volume. So, you know, we have $1.3 million in premium, and you know, close to $1 million of that is in commercial.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. Man, that's solid. That's solid.
Yeah, I mean, the servicing is different. The understanding of between the clients is different. I mean, dude, there's some commercial clients. We're probably not gonna talk until the renewal, and that's simply because their business is that low maintenance. But they're big premiums, make more money off of that, you know. And there are some guys that call me every month because they're personal lines, and so it's like that's just how it goes.
Exactly. Man.
So yeah, we just we go after the bigger stuff that, you know, when you do things right at the very beginning too, it makes a huge difference. So yeah, if there's a lot of hiccups, those first couple weeks or months are going to be rough just because you're trying to fix everything that maybe didn't come out exactly like you planned or wanted to. So take more time at the beginning and just do things right.
Makes sense.
Because once they're in and you've established that connection and you're able to develop that relationship of communication and what's going to work best for them is what's going to make your business growth and retention with them and others much more successful.
Okay.
Let me just go grab a water real quick.
Okay, no worries.
All right, man. So, what else do you think you like? I mean, if you have specific questions, even if it's not regarding like the marketing process, what do you think I can help you with, or what are you running into that, you know, has either been like biting at you or that you want to see kind of like a better way to look at things?
Really just like strategy behind the commercial business. And what I mean by that, because I mean, there's like I feel like with me, at least, it took time for me to get, you know, that comfort level, that ease of doing business with on the personal line side. And just like I mentioned earlier, it's like that's the main thing I want to get. I guess but it comes with repetition, just like you mentioned earlier on the commercial side, like knowing when to package certain things together and how to package certain things together. That's one thing that I'm definitely really curious about in terms of the mindset. Like, okay, I should place this part of the business here and this part of the business here, you know, instead of doing something else.
So what I can tell you is that a majority of that was trial and error. I could probably share as much as I can off the top of my head or what I have, you know, in notes with you. Because me, just like you, really, coming from the captive world to the independent world is like, shit, man, I got all these things. Like, where do I go for what? Right. So the one thing that I developed quickly, because I'm sure this is still happening to you and it will continue to happen to you, at least for the first couple of years, is you're going to get visited a lot by new companies, reps, wholesalers, all this stuff. Eventually, you know, they want to set up meetings with you and do all this stuff. And that's great. So aside from the documents that they'll probably give you, I would always ask them, all right, what are you guys killing it at? I need to know. I need to have this written down. I need to have this stored in my brain. So when I'm talking to a client and I know it's got a, you know, it's kind of in that realm, all right, you guys are one of the ones that I'm going to try because I don't want to waste my time with all these carriers if they're not going to do it.
Exactly.
So
Okay.
even though sometimes I end up doing that just because, well, I'm either figuring it out or I kind of have to because there's a number of carriers that are going to do it. And some will have their certain quirks that will either kick them out or have certain questions about certain things. That you'll learn as you get through certain submissions. But what I can tell you and what I've learned so far, well, let's look at this a different way. Why don't you tell me what you run into more than anything else first, and we can, or give me some industries, and then I'll tell you where you can probably go to that you're probably going to get the best rates at from these first couple carriers.
I've ran into, actually surprisingly, ran into, what is this, 3 medical office buildings.
Okay. So these are entities that like own the actual real estate, right?
Correct.
Okay. So depending on the like if they're just offices or clinics, like, just walk-in patients, they're not, like hospital type or things like that.
Correct.
Guard is really good. Berkshire Hathaway Guard. Nationwide isn't too bad. They're actually competitive, just depends. And it depends on the size of those buildings as well and what kind of safety things are in there. For example, like Nationwide would have probably beat Guard on one of my clients' buildings, but because the entire building was not sprinklered, Nationwide didn't want it. Guard was okay with it.
Okay.
And then vice versa. And then Travelers may be another one that you would want to try for like real estate. Oh, you know what? If it's a small enough building, so if we're not talking like, over 2 or 3 million, I believe, in total insured value, State Auto is really good for office buildings as well.
That's real good to know. Still waiting on Travelers because I'm not appointed yet because we have to wait 6 months.
Travelers is going to take a while, man.
Right. That's what I'm hearing from everybody.
Oh, yeah, dude.
But yeah, I haven't even crossed, like, you have to wait 6 months, right? That's what at least I've heard.
So for you guys, it's probably different. Like for me as an individual branch agent through TWFG, they have a requirement, at least on the personal line side.
Oh yeah, you did mention that.
Yeah, I had to hit 25,000 in premium. And then what is it? Here, give me a sec. Sammy Pettis was approved in Bankers. Bankers?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just FYI.
And
but with the commercial, I don't even know what they're like. I don't know. I'm currently writing through TWFG's master code, so I'm fine with that. I don't really put a whole lot of business through them, but there are times where they just kill it on certain things. Like there was a auto repair shop that that happened to be in New Mexico, and like I don't know, none of my other carriers were looking at it or were okay with it, and Travelers was okay with it. Even after their inspection, everything was fine. So
makes sense. So who would you say, I guess, with some, I guess, who do you think would write a lesser's risk with some vacancies? Not some, but like
depends on the percentage.
Okay.
A lot of vacancies?
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a good amount, like 70, 75%.
Okay, so that's probably going to be surplus lines.
Okay.
Yeah, just because none of the admitted carriers like that. It doesn't matter how you flip it. So the crazy thing is, though, is that those vacancies can change from like literally one day to the next.
True.
So it just depends the period of time like they've been that vacant. If they tend to, like if the client tends to fill those pretty quickly, but just at the period of time where you're quoting, they have a higher vacancy. It's okay. I would just put a quote through, a standard carrier that will accept that level, a higher level of vacancy. I mean, a lower level vacancy, assuming that, they're going to fill those vacancies pretty quickly. So it just depends. You have to feel out the client. Some of that really can help you when you are conversing with the client. Like, how's your claims history? One, that's really important. And then two, well, you have these vacancies right now, but how long have they been here, or how long do you expect them to be here?
What if it's a new purchase?
So they just purchased a building and there was a lot of vacancies?
Correct.
I would put that through surplus lines just because it's also new business. So like, even though they might have experience, if they don't have other buildings that they've already owned for a number of years, and let's say it's just their first commercial building purchase or whatever, yeah, surplus lines for sure. It sucks, but
gotcha. So anytime you have you run across like a new business, you tend to lean towards surplus?
No, not necessarily. Okay. Just in this case, because of the vacancy thing, that's now two things that are slight red flags for independent carriers.
Gotcha. Okay. Oh, and who are your, I guess would you say is your like top 2 or 3 carriers?
Oh, I can tell you. Let me pull up a report.
Okay.
I think Nationwide for sure. I think Nationwide might be number 1. Commercial. I have some stuff on commercial. I mean, on Progressive Auto commercial, but I know Progressive is my biggest carrier, just personal lines, period, or in general, because they're combining both the personal lines and commercial premium there.
Oh.
At least on my reports here. So let me see. Agency summary. All right, so Guard is actually my number 2 overall carrier, and I pretty much only put commercial and very little homeowner stuff through them. Nationwide, Liberty Mutual, and State Auto. Safeco, obviously that's all personal lines. And then you got Amwins, that's a brokerage, but that's our surplus lines business.
Oh yeah, you mentioned it. That would be someone I need to connect with as well.
Yeah, actually, dang it, I have the documents in my truck, but I'm gonna forward you some contracting paperwork from my buddies that we just met with today. But my buddy from high school works with them, CRC. A lot of the people from Burns and Wilcox moved over to this company. What was your email again? Rudolph?
Yeah. Rudolph at Cedar Oak, just like the trees. And Integra, INTEGRA.com.
Got it. And so that's all the paperwork you would need to do some sort of appointment with them. So just reach out and just be like, hey, Uli referred me over to you guys. And they'll know exactly what you're talking about.
Okay.
But yeah, so those are my top carriers, commercial wise.
Gotcha. And who else do you have besides for CRC and Wins that you would send for surplus?
Burns and Wilcox.
Okay. I think we're actually working on that one right there.
And then yeah, Burns and Wilcox may take you a few days, whereas like the CRC guys, they can set you up in 24 to 48 hours.
Man, yeah, freaking Amy Craig has been freaking phenomenal.
Yeah, but then they have their limitations. So like when I get to certain things, they're like, shit, we don't do that. I'm like, okay. So that's when I need to go to other people. And honestly, I can tell you right now, CRC will probably take care of a lot of those slightly bigger ones or larger ones and be quick about it still too. So
see, that's the I guess that's what won me over with Amy is because right now we have McClellan and Hines. And man, like so I sent the same quotes I sent to Amy. She got them back to me the same day. I sent to them like that. I sent the same quotes to them the same day as well. It's been 2 weeks and I haven't heard back at all.
Yeah, dude. Well, okay, so here's the thing. With the big guys like Amwins and Burns and Wilcox, luckily this is not the case with CRC, but depending on what industries and how easy it is to quote the risk, like because a lot of those smaller contractors, man, they just go into the radar and they just need basic information and boom, 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 they get your quote 5-10 minutes. That's why it's same day. But like the larger stuff, they'll look at their what's it called? They'll look at their production report and see which agents are generating the most business through them and hit those guys up first because, well, they got to take care of their people. You know what I mean?
Right.
And that's why it takes them a while to get to certain submissions unless you're doing tons of business through them all the time anyways.
That makes sense. It's crazy. It makes sense, though.
Yeah. So So though I think with those you'd be good. Another one to maybe look at, a couple actually. See if you can get online access to Markel's admitted program,
Mm.
because they have a lot of cool stuff. Like they just quoted for me a couple things: a pest control company, a martial arts studio, and that's admitted.
Mm.
So some cool stuff with them.
So with stuff like that, like I guess with even surplus, how do you know who to go to for surplus?
Depends, like really, if you, and that's what I do. I start to list them out, and then I just put like, all right, I know to go to these people. But after a while of experiencing, so that's why I say, like, I don't know, give me a risk and I'll tell you.
Oh, I see. That makes
It's
sense.
just easier for me to do it that way. But yeah, smaller contractors, Amy and Matt are awesome. Larger contractors, Amy and Matt can still probably do some of them, but they might not be as competitive because they have limited markets. So then that's when I go to guys like Amwins and Burns and Wilcox. USLI is great for a lot of things, including like the more straightforward restaurant and liquor liability type risks. Usually the ones that include alcohol are good. Markel like has a great program for like martial arts, and man, dude, they have some weird, crazy stuff. I mean, they have some good commissions too. So it just depends on where you're competitive, because they say they write a lot of restaurants. I'm like, dude, you guys don't touch anything that I write with other carriers, but whatever. So it just depends.
Man, I had no clue that even Markel had a admitted program. So that was kind of new for me.
So I just learned this today, but Markel is actually the largest insurance carrier in the entire nation.
Really?
Like by premium size. They are the largest.
Man.
So if you look up like AM Best Markel, right. I'm sure it's pretty insane like how they have it set up. They have all these subsidiaries too, but
that makes sense.
Yeah, man, they're huge.
So I just lost track of thought. Oh, with the admitted program, you're like directly appointed through them on that.
The Markel, yeah, and so I mean, you can try to request also a direct appointment through them.
Okay, I'll check that out. Check that out.
Okay, so yeah, so the main thing is developing that process, that system. Obviously, I'm going to give you a little bit more of the process. Let's say you've got your caller setting up on appointments now, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. You got to set the expectation that when we go out and meet with you, because that is the goal, we want to go out and meet with you, get to know your business in person, understand your business, all that stuff, is have your current insurance policies ready. The agent wants to review them with you, kind of touch base on any kind of things that are important in the policy, how you're covered and stuff like that. And then on top of that, when I'm there, I do the same thing. So I find out, what is important to them. What are they looking to make sure they're covered? And then we jump into their policy and actually see. And then this doesn't always happen this way, but this is the optimal way to do it. Is all right. Now, based off of what you just told me, this is how your policy covers you. Did you know that? Or is this actually meeting your expectations? Or in some cases, it's like sorely under meeting their expectations, but they had no idea most of the time. So that's when you're already trying to create the case for yourself that you're going to come back with something that's going to be more valuable to them, because we've already uncovered and discovered what's important to you and found out that your current policy just doesn't do it.
Gotcha.
So what I'm going to come back with is going to actually do it.
I like it.
All right. So then if we, once we have the proposal, like I'm not just going to drive out there on a blind notice. So we always confirm appointments, always make sure that, if I'm going to go somewhere, that it's going to happen, a meeting's going to happen of some sort. Mm-hmm. So rarely nowadays I'm either not driving as much, or I'm just not driving to an appointment that ends up, being dead end type of thing because they weren't there or something like that. So when I show up, they're there, and we get to meet and discuss. So the expectation's set. Every time I go, like, it's straightforward what's going to happen, how it's going to happen, and then, of course, from there, the decision is theirs once I've, presented everything.
Right.
Yeah.
Got to confirm for sure.
Okay. So things to consider with certain industries, like let's say like auto services. A lot of underserved needs on those types of policies are going to be the garage keepers. How many cars do you typically have in your shop? What is the average value of the car that's here on a daily basis? Well, okay, if you have an average of 10 cars a day here and the average value is 25,000, technically, if you had a total loss, you should have a garage keeper's limit of about 250,000. But even half of that is really good because most of them don't have that. So you're like, all right, you should have at least 125,000, and they have like 50,000. It's like, dude, if someone jumps the fence and vandalizes 6 of your cars and totals 2 of them, dude, there's no way that 50,000 is going to be enough. You know who's going to be paying that? You are, out of pocket.
Right.
So you're already setting that example in that case that, dude, you're undercovered. I'm going to give you something that's going to cover you the right way.
Right. That makes sense.
So restaurants, a big one is going to be business income and extra expense and the waiting period. If you have a business that's doing $1 million a year in sales, okay, so let's do some math here. That's an average of $2,700 a day. If they have a 72-hour waiting period on their business income and extra expense type coverage on their policy, that is over $8,000 that they are losing in a case of a deductible. Basically, that's what it is. Because their policy will not recompensate them on business income loss on a covered claim until after the 3rd day. So if they're back up and operating in 2 days, or after 2 days, and on the 3rd day they're back up, they're not going to get any money for the lost income. Or they might get some prorated amount if there is restoration within the first 30 days after the business starts up again. But not every policy has it. So a lot of the policies that we offer are 0 days or 0-hour waiting period, just because that's going to help the business retain most of their income for when they have a type of loss that puts them out of business temporarily.
Okay. So I guess 2 quick questions. One of them, I don't want to interrupt, but one of them, do you reach out to or contact loan officers who do SBA loans?
Say that one more time.
Do you reach out or contact loan officers or prospect loan officers who do SBA loans?
SBA loans?
Yeah.
No, I have not.
Okay. I was just curious. I didn't know if that was part of your strategy at all either. But
no, I haven't had to, or I haven't looked at that strategy, just because the consistency of the cold calling piece has been just so effective that, like, right now, like, I have it kind of mildly turned off because we're getting a lot of referrals and stuff like that too. But
why deviate from that?
Huh?
It's why deviate from that if it's working? Yeah,
exactly. That's one thing. But another thing too is that, once again, we're still keeping things tight. Like, I'm trying to grow as much as possible and maximize the profit margins first before I start bringing in more people, because the processes are already set. So I could plug in more people, but now I got to make the expense to pay those people and continue getting an ROI. So I'd rather have the ROI already kind of generating and kind of on that snowball effect. So we're in the first couple months where we're starting to get, renewals, and it's like, dude, these are checks that I was getting like when I was with Farmers after 7 years and 13 months in. So now it's just like, all right, what can I do to push it to the limit before I have to really bring someone in? Because we're still bringing that top level customer service. As you can see, my phone has rang once in the hour that we've been talking. So, we don't get a whole lot of calls yet. And that's kind of the big difference too of how fast we've grown too, because you will get calls, and the more personal line stuff you do, you will get more calls.
Exactly.
But Also, we've grown so fast within that year. Most of our policies are yearly policies. We're not really dealing with stuff, like I've been getting calls and most of them are regarding renewals or things like that, like premiums going up or things that we have to look at to update things on commercial policies. And that's fine. That's like a yearly conversation that we invite anyways.
For sure.
But I'm not getting a whole bunch of chatter between. So like, I can be out all day on appointments that my marketer has awesomely set up and not have to worry too much about service right now. But I know in 6 months, probably going to have to worry about that more. You know what I mean?
That makes
So
sense.
like if right now, you're how many months in?
This is month 4.
And then like, what has been your average production in those months so far, like per month?
I can actually pull that up here for you. 1 second.
And then how do you guys have your structure set up? Like, are you only responsible for your own clients, or as a collective, you guys take care of each other's clients, or?
So typically we take care of our own clients unless there's a situation when I'm like, hey, we're in a meeting and hey, can you take care of this client for me? But for the most part, we take care of our own clients.
Okay.
Yeah. Let me see here.
I don't know if this guy's going to actually come in, but I might actually have and I forgot about this when I pushed this appointment. The guy might be coming in here in 20 minutes at 3:30, but he may not.
Okay.
So if he shows up, obviously. Oh, and the other thing I didn't mention in our chat, but obviously, you're a good friend of mine, dude. So I'm not going to shortcut anything. Okay. If we need another 30 minutes to chat on another call, that's fine. But I also do another follow-up, hour call.
Okay.
To see how certain things are progressing. Okay. And that's all included as whatever we agreed upon as far as price goes.
That'll work, brother. That'll work. Yeah. And shoot me out a PayPal link or however.
Yeah, I'll shoot it to you right now.
Yeah.
Just here we go.
Let me see here. So right now it's been an average, just say around 12K a week.
12K a week? Okay, that's not bad. It's like 50,000 a month, close to 50,000 a month.
Yeah, exactly. 50,000 a month is pretty average. That's just for the agency, for myself.
Okay, good. No, that's still good. Like if that's just you, that's really good. So if you're able to implement some of this right away and start tacking on those larger accounts that just make a difference, and by larger, I'm talking about just 3, 4, 5,000, man. If you're getting a number of those a month on top of what you're already doing personal lines, think about it. You're already jumping your personal production from let's say 50 to 75,000 a month individually. That's big time because within a year you're going to be that much closer to let's say $1 million, and now those renewals kick in. And if your service level is low, because you will have lower service level on a commercial account versus a personal lines account for sure, your ROI is even bigger because you're not having to spend money on someone to actually help service. You can be spending money on someone who's going to help you keep growing just as fast or faster. And then eventually, obviously, have to invest in people that are going to properly service the account. So or whatever. So you can service and you can pay someone to sell. Whatever you're good at, you're going to stick at. And I recommend putting someone in a place where they're going to do better to help you at the things that you either don't want to do or are not so good at.
That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. Okay.
So for me, because I have most of the knowledge on the front end, right? I'm working on training, for example, my dad, my business partner here. My value is in staying in front of the business owner. If I have other things that are keeping me in front of that to the point where I just can't do it effectively anymore, I'm going to eventually pay somebody or find somebody or train somebody to do that stuff, like the actual quoting or the document side or things like that. So I can still be in front of the business owner because the relationship and the closing ability is where I'm strong at. Once I sit down with someone, unless we're just not meeting eye to eye as far as what we're trying to deliver and what they're wanting, we're usually going to do business. Usually.
Gotcha.
Like this guy that I met with today, I mean, he was paying 2,500. I was asking him to pay 10 grand. It's a big jump.
Right.
So I didn't expect it to happen right away, but he understood that, well, but I also know that your stuff is offering me like way more coverage. And of course, you know, you're offering coverage for my auto shop, which I don't even have really with this other policy. And it's true, he doesn't. So he's already making the commitment to at least follow up with me on Monday. And of course, we have a follow-up on Tuesday if he doesn't do that, because he may forget or whatever.
Exactly.
And that's fine. But that's where you know, add in those accounts. Like right now, if I look at my agency Zoom, we're behind on our goal, but just by a little bit. But then, you know, you got those huge accounts that come in like 10K. If we wrap that guy up this month, then we're golden. You know what I mean? So
exactly. So with I guess your process, how do you have time to fill out the Cord apps? Because at least for me, it take a while. Or I guess
what are you using right now to fill out your Cord apps?
Just, I mean, PDF.
How do you get them? Where do you get your cords from?
Oh, we have I guess through Easy Links, we have
okay, you have Easy Links? Okay, yeah. So then you just download the PDF and it's fillable, and then you just fill it out?
Exactly.
I mean, we do the same thing, except like so here's the thing. Most of what we prospect is not surplus lines. So most of what I'm writing is done on some sort of carrier where I'm literally doing the entire quote online. Travelers, okay. And that's you heard me. I mean, like Amwins is only there and it is only one of my top carriers because of the amount of premium I put through them, but the amount of accounts is rather low compared to my other carriers because I just put more business through them. So State Auto, Liberty Mutual, Hartford, Guard, Travelers. Let's see who else here. And then of course we've got some like certain line specific type carriers, like I have Zenith for work comp. We've got Employers for work comp. We have National General. I think I have maybe like one policy through them.
Texas Mutual for work comp.
Oh, Texas Mutual, yeah.
Okay.
So I only use them on stuff for like either brand new businesses or when I get declines and other stuff, because most of the time I could probably find a better rate. Texas Mutual is not the cheapest. They're cool because they have dividends. So
exactly.
Yeah. So, but honestly, like, here's the thing: those dividends aren't guaranteed. Whereas if you're getting a guaranteed lower rate with another carrier, it just makes more sense.
That's true.
Like, dude, I had a pest control company that I just did like a week ago. My biggest savings was on the work comp. They had $78,000 worth of claims, but it was only 3 claims, and 2 of those 3 claims were related to one incident with an employee that's no longer with them, and it was not necessarily like a safety issue or something that the employer could technically control, right?
That makes sense.
So I went to AmTrust because their renewal with their company, which was a surplus lines, by the way, was coming out at $11,000 for the work comp, which wasn't terrible. But you're gonna laugh when I write a policy through AmTrust for the exact same coverage at $3,206.
Dang.
So yeah, I left money on the table, but at the same time, I got a super happy customer who's probably gonna be with me for life. You know what I mean?
Right.
So just knowing what, you know, and in this case, I didn't know where to go for pest control. I had a bunch, so I tried Employers. They like more of like the low risk office type, restaurant type people. So the contractors are really hard to find. I mean, I went to Texas Mutual. They also had a quote just under $4,000, which still wasn't too much different. Then AmTrust gave me the quote on the spot, approved it within 24 hours at $3,200, even after seeing those loss runs. So that was big for us. But those are the carriers that I write through. Oh, I do a lot through Nationwide as well. I think you already told you that. Let's see. Markel as well. So the surplus stuff, there is some. Oh, Frank Winston and Crum. Make sure you get set up with them as well. For smaller, let's say like artisan type contractors, they are awesome, dude. You can quote them online right away, get it insured right away. So you don't have to do those with surplus lines. Like if it's a drywaller, if it's a carpentry guy, and like that's all they do, they're not a general contractor.
Yeah.
You can put them through there like quickly. Like I've got, guys that just want strict GL, they don't want anything else, or maybe they want a little bit of inland marine, like contractors equipment, some small stuff here or there, installation floater. That's fine. They'll do it, and their rates are hard to beat, man. I had a guy that I had on through RPS with Scottsdale Insurance, who's a insulation company, and after 2 renewals, he was going to be paying like closer to $5K with Scottsdale, which still wasn't bad. But I quoted it with Frank Winston Crum, and you can also include. So they're admitted, by the way, versus they're admitted versus like these other carriers. So you go admitted, and you can include your own producer fee or agency fee in there, and they bill it to the client. It's all direct bill. So that's the other cool thing. So I'll throw it in there. And they quoted me my installation contractor at like $3,500 versus the $5K that they were renewing at.
That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense.
And they went from surplus lines to admitted.
That is true too. So with the
do you know the difference between surplus lines and admitted?
Well, really, I guess the way I've always, the way I know about it is surplus lines is everything that can't be placed in an admitted with that admitted company. Not like Liberty Mutual, Guard, Nationwide, State Auto, all those are admitted versus everything else that can't be placed there is going to be surplus.
Yeah. Okay.
Is that right?
So for the most part, that's accurate, except for there are some big things that make it a big difference maker for some businesses, especially if you have the option to get them on admitted versus surplus lines. Because even though most of the time the premiums may be better on admitted, sometimes they're more expensive on admitted for many reasons. One of those reasons, for example, is going to be like the automatic inclusion of package coverages with a BOP, whereas surplus lines are going to have a ton of exclusions and usually like straight GL or straight GL and property type coverages. Okay.
That makes sense.
The other big thing is that most of the insurers that are surplus lines are not domiciled in this state, which means that that's why you have the state taxes and all that stuff, surplus lines tax. Makes sense. They are not regulated by the state. They are not part of the Texas Guarantee Association. So what does that mean? When someone is covered by an admitted carrier, and let's say that carrier goes insolvent and they happen to have a claim during that period before they switch to another carrier, the Texas Guarantee Association guarantees here, give me a second, Charlie.
I'm just jotting down some notes on that. I didn't know.
So when they're part of the Texas Guarantee Association and they have that claim, there's $300,000 allocated for every insured protected by the Texas Guarantee Association in the case of a claim. Surplus lines carriers are not protected or part of that Texas Guarantee Association. So if they happen to go insolvent or out of business and the insured has a claim, they are SOL.
That makes sense.
That's another huge benefit to being part of an admitted carrier versus not admitted.
That makes sense.
Three proposals.
One other thing I was curious. I'm going to be, I guess, running across, and I just ran across actually an HOA, like for a condo community.
Yeah.
Who would you place that with?
Man, those are hard, dude. So what I'm gonna say is Nationwide is not bad. It just depends on the age of the buildings, how they're protected.
2005 was a year built.
2005.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay, so if they're fairly newer, no, Nationwide would probably be good.
Mm-hmm.
An HOA, so we're talking about the shells and stuff, and so these people own their condos or whatever.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, so Nationwide was going to be good. Travelers might be good. I think I haven't really tried them with one of those. Those are, and then maybe Liberty Mutual because it's a newer building. It just depends too. They want certain fire safety controls. So in this case, those are harder to just delineate just because of the fact that these people own their own condos. So if they don't want to have, smoke detectors in them, then that's up to them. You know what I mean?
Right.
But in the common areas, there needs to be some sort of controls or things like that. But Nationwide is really good. Believe it or not, Farmers is really good at those. We obviously can't write them. Farmers is probably going to be the most competitive one. Other than that, you might have to go surplus lines just because of how some of those associations have their CC&Rs like written and how coverage needs to be affected. Like I've got this one commercial building. It's owned by an association, and then of course each unit member has their own like they own their own unit.
Right.
They own the walls inside. But because of the specific wording in their bylaws, I had written the traveler's policy to cover the shell of the building only, common areas and like the walls and stuff like that. But once we're talking about the studs in, that's the each unit owner's responsibility. Well, the bylaws weren't really clear about that. So travelers did the inspection and said, you know what, based on this and based on what's in their bylaws, they should have the entire building covered. So it jumped their coverage from like 1.2 million to like 2.9. I'm still waiting to see what the premium difference is, but if they're okay with it, I'll just get paid more on it. But you know what I mean? Like they're probably not going to be happy.
What was the premium on the 1.9 million in coverage?
So it was 1.2, and it was for a 40,000 square foot building. It was just one building, 40,000 square feet. It was like 12,000.
Wow.
Or just under 13,000, something like that. And
okay, so because like the one I'm working on right now, I will be working on. They have their they were saying that they have coverage for 11, 12 million for their.
Oh yeah. This is just one commercial strip building with 16 units. I mean, you're probably talking about like 30 to 50 units in yours, or maybe more.
Right.
Yeah. You're talking about basically a neighborhood. So, I mean, those are sweet. That's gonna be a good policy, dude. Like 11 million. I mean, is gonna be probably in the $20,000 to $50,000 range.
Wow. Yeah. That'd be the biggest. I mean, if I do write or when I write it.
I mean, that's 1 month's production, bro.
Right. That's what I'm saying. That's pretty solid right there.
Yeah, but that's commercial for you. So really with them, it's so you're gonna sound like a pro. Even if you've already had a meeting with them, have another meeting with them or with their board or whatever. Make sure you get a copy of their bylaws, insurance requirements, how they require their association members to be insured, and then how the association needs to be insured. Find out how many directors they have, because there's a good chance that on that policy they have to have directors and officers coverage. Okay. And that protects them just in case, one of the directors or officers does something and they're suing the association, they can be protected by the policy.
Man, okay.
Yeah. But see, I just learned all that by dealing with it and learning it on the fly. I didn't really understand that, you know what I mean? That kind of thing.
So that's like another thing. Like I'm just, because of course I want to make sure people are properly insured and properly covered. That's how I am on a personal line side. But I feel like there's so many different like options on the commercial side that I could maybe not have on the policy that needs to be, or just like you mentioned earlier with the contractors, like having inland marine coverage.
Oh yeah. So what happens a lot with the contractors that they don't have or they don't consider until, of course, you ask them and maybe make sure how they want to be covered is, what do you do if you're at a work site, a job site? I don't know. Let's just say it's a flooring contractor, and you've got $20,000 worth of flooring that you're about to install, and you set it at the work site. It's on the floor. It's inside the building. Let's say it's an interior job, and you go to the bathroom or whatever, and your guys are off to lunch because you just dropped it off. Once they come back from lunch, you're going to start unpacking and working on the installation. Well, I don't know. Let's say that this flooring is like some kind of wood base, that can be damaged by water, and the water heater in the building busts, and then there's a huge, whatever. So although you could potentially say, all right, well, that's the building owner's policy that's going to cover the materials. In this case, the materials technically are still owned by the contractor, but they're for somebody else.
Right.
So the policy of the building owner or the suite owner or whatever is not going to cover those materials because they're not installed yet. So installation floater is going to cover that. So like, for example, luckily I was able to save these guys money, but in the process, I was able to cover them for a lot more things. Like I had a countertop contractor. And one of the things that I asked him was like, look, if you're at a job site and you've got, a huge quartz, countertop, your guys are moving it over to where it needs to be installed. And one of the guys, I don't know, trips on something and drops the countertop and it cracks. What do you do, man? I mean, that's an expensive thing that you would have to basically pay out of pocket to replace because, well, it's yours. You haven't installed it yet. It's not the client's.
Exactly.
They're like, well, I mean, I don't know. The most we have at one job site is like $40,000. So we put $40,000 on their policy, and now if something like that happens or there's some type of loss, they don't have to pay out of pocket to replace that, especially if it's like a $40,000 job where they have so much stuff there.
Right.
And so they're like, damn, dude, we didn't even know that stuff like that existed. And that's because their other agent just didn't explain it to them, didn't offer it to them.
Exactly.
So not only were we able to save the money, but we were able to give them more and explain how it works and help them out with that kind of stuff. So understanding those things as you grow and as you do more. I mean, if you have any questions, just reach out, man. Just go ahead and ask me, and
sure.
I'll do my best to answer. I mean, I still ask questions every now and then. I was mentored a lot by Kenny because, well, my dad worked as a mentee under him, so it was me and him both kind of learning at the same time. And I was always like, Kenny, what about this? Or how does this work? If he didn't know the answer, because there was so many things that I was doing that, he had never done either. I just go ask somebody else or go in the groups or whatever and just figure it out.
Yeah. That makes sense. Did you have like with farmers, did y'all have like an extensive commercial training? Okay.
Dude, close to the end of my career with farmers, I was a commercial trainer. I was training other agents, like just because I was trained by one of their top agents, and then, they started recognizing my production and then started asking me to jump on, doing presentations for other agents and stuff like that. And so,
right.
Yeah.
So, real quick, I got a couple. I was just jotting down some notes on some things.
Yeah.
For GCs, general contractors, who you normally place them with?
Okay, so depends. Depends on the size and depends on what they do and how they're set up. So I always ask them, do you guys do most of the work in-house with employees on payroll? Or do you 100% like sub everything, or do you sub a majority of the work? So if your guys do at least 15 to 25% of the work yourselves with guys that are on payroll, that is potentially something you could put on Liberty Mutual as long as they do not do roofing. Okay. So like, for example, I did have a general contractor that was owned by one company, and then they had a sister company that did the roofing. So they wouldn't necessarily have to subcontract or like, sub another roofer. They would just, well, this roofer can help you out. And then they would individually invoice the client. So they would never end up on each other's policy or whatever. So Liberty Mutual took that general contractor and did like a GL for me. But it's rare, dude. Like if there's any sort of uninsured sub type situation or things like that, then yeah, you're gonna have to go surplus lines. And like people like Craig and Like, they're really good. And I'm gonna start sending everything to CRC, but they're just another option to get with those carriers and stuff.
Right. Oh yeah, and speaking of, that was something I didn't even know that was a thing, especially coming from Liberty, is that the broker fees and the extra funds you can make on the financing side, man, that's wild to me.
Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, we typically mainly use IPFS to do our financing. And so, yeah, you can build in the the agency fees that you would charge right into the finance agreement.
Mm-hmm.
It still separates it out so the client can really know exactly what they're getting charged for what.
Right.
But I mean, I'm just upfront with the client, like, look, I'm charging you a $1,000 fee, or I'm charging you $2,000 fees. Well, why? Well, one, I'm saving you way more than this, or two, this you're gonna ask me to do all this stuff and fill out these COIs all the year long and do all this and do all that. I mean, we're not really making much on the actual commission. I have to pay my team to do this stuff. So, you just got to set that expectation. But at the same time, if you communicate it clearly and they understand, and you're still doing them a favor or doing something good for them, then yeah, dude, I mean, charge them. Like I think I told you, I had one guy, my Solera guy, he does all the manufacturing and stuff with the oil field parts. And I had a couple quotes come in for him initially. And then I had one come in from Evanston that was like $5,000 cheaper. Well, I had already quoted him the first ones because we needed to close like really soon.
Mm-hmm.
And I told him, I was like, wait a second, man, let's not buy this one. Look at this. Instead of saving him $5,000, right, I threw on another $1,000 fee. So now I'm charging him $2,000. I said, hey, I'm saving you $3,000 here instead of $5,000.
Gotcha. Understand. I like it's still $3,000.
Exactly.
So,
I mean, I had another person, also surplus lines, work comp. I was saving them $8,000. Threw on a $1,000 fee. I'm like, I'm saving you $7,000. Here you go.
And you can only do agency fee on surplus lines, right? Or can you do it on the admitted carriers?
I don't. I think you can. I mean, there's even some agencies that are charging fees on renewals and stuff. It's freaking weird. Nah, if it's as standard admitted carrier, they're paying the carrier directly, so I don't even mess with it.
Gotcha.
But some of the carriers do allow you to turn their policies into agency bill if allowed. I don't like doing that either. I mean, I'm writing so much business, dude. I just want to write it, process it, and move forward and get to the next one.
That makes sense.
So like Liberty has an option when you're closing a policy. Do you want this to be direct bill or agency bill? And I never select agency bill. Although you could do that. But the downside is that your agency is responsible. If the client doesn't pay, then now what?
Yeah, that is true. That is very true.
So yeah, I mean, like on the surplus line side, there are ways to better protect your agency, but still in the event of it all, I mean, your agency is still responsible. So if you're doing a finance agreement, right, and the client hasn't paid and there's some back charge to it or whatever, obviously you got your commissions up front because that usually comes out of the down payment. So now you got to turn around and pay that back to the finance company because they're going to return all the unearned premium to the carrier. Or sorry, the other way around. They're going to send a cancel notice to the carrier. The carrier is going to reimburse the finance agreement that already covered the cost, for the entire year. And then whatever's missing is usually the unearned commissions. And so you got to return that back to the finance company.
Gotcha. So, real quick on the agency fee, do you normally like choose a percentage, or you always have the same flat amount?
No, I had a conversation with Nato about this the other day. So typically, if it's under $5,000, $500. If it's $500 to $10,000 or more, usually it's $1,000. And then just depending, and then once it's above 10,000, depending on the logistics of the entire deal, it could be more. So, for example, like that guy that I charged him $2,000, well, it's because we were already like at 14,000, 15,000 in premium, but I was saving him $5,000 from his other option that I had for him. So I said, yeah, I'm saving you $3,000 here, man. And I threw on another $1,000 on there.
But that's only when it's above 10 grand typically, though.
Well, I just, as long as you're consistent, right? So I just developed that on the spot, and now I kind of stay consistent with it. But at the same time, that's when it really makes a difference too. So like if you're over 10,000 and you're saving, $5,000-6,000, that's a lot. So $1,000 ain't gonna make a huge difference. So adding another $1,000 on your fee is not a big deal.
That makes sense. Let me see here. Oh, who did you place an architect with?
Depends on what type of coverage they're needing.
Professional liability.
Professional liability. You can try Guard, I think. Let me see here. I could be wrong. Let me double check something. I'm looking at their appetite guide real quick.
That's smart.
Architects, yeah. So they'll do the architects, engineers, and consultants. They'll do the professional liability. Let's see, Travelers or Hiscox should be able to do the professional liability as well. So if you don't have Travelers yet, Hiscox is another one.
Okay.
Let's see, quote and issue. I wonder how to do that. I can't really see that here, but wait a second. Appetite guy. Okay, architects. So we would go through bond and specialty insurance, and they do have EO as well.
So do you keep everyone's appetite guide? That's pretty smart.
Sometimes I just pull them up really quick, like Travelers. I just click their links and just find it real quick.
Gotcha.
If I'm not really sure, yeah, appetite guides are huge, man.
That makes sense.
Very helpful.
Let me see here. Last couple things. First thing is performance bonds versus surety bonds. Are they the exact same thing?
Performance bonds versus what?
Surety bonds.
Surety bonds? They're the same thing. Everything is a surety bond. Now.
Okay.
Well, no, never mind. So it really depends on the company you're dealing with, but all you got to do to delineate between the two is say, how much is the bond for? And if they say 10 or 25,000, that's a blanket building and construction bond that a contractor just needs to operate in a certain city or county. Pretty much everyone probably needs that. Now, performance bond is totally separate. Okay, so wait, before I even get a performance bond, a blanket building and construction bond protects the client in such a way for when the work is done unsatisfactorily or does not pass inspection or has caused more damage to their property rather than repairing or whatever they needed to do. So they can file the bond to hire another contractor to do the work correctly.
Gotcha.
A performance bond is different. A performance bond is measured financially, and it's usually based on the amount of the entire project. So, for example, I just did one the other day. It was a $477,000 performance bond for a millwork company that needed the bond. And so the way that this works is that a general contractor or whoever's subbing them out or hiring them is requiring that because if they, for some reason, don't have the financial strength of the manpower or the resources or whatever to get the job done, or they just bail on the job completely, the client or the other person can file on that bond to get the money needed to hire someone to actually do it, to hire someone that's actually going to have the resources to get it done. So that's why performance bonds, all the financial stuff is measured closely, because if their financials don't line up with the risk tolerance of the company, then they won't offer them the bond.
Gotcha.
Also, they look at past performance. So in this case of a $477,000 bond, well, what was their biggest job? Well, if their biggest job has only been, let's say, $100,000, how are they anywhere near prepared enough to take on a $400,000 job?
Right.
And so they look at all the financials and stuff to determine that.
So
they look at tax returns, balance sheets, all this stuff.
So if a contractor, because I had a situation just Wednesday, actually yesterday. I had a guy. He asked me. He had a client ask him if he was bonded.
Okay, so that's different. Yeah, that's going to be like the blanket building and construction bond.
Okay.
So it might be titled something different, but it should be something like that. Here, let me see. I can tell you right away. You're in Houston, right?
I'm in Austin.
You're in Austin. Okay. All right. So I don't know which carriers you have for bonds, but like, for example, our main starting go-to is going to be Liberty Surety.
Yeah. I have them.
Okay, cool. So I'm sure your system is pretty similar. When you type in the did you send the binder info for Shin? Catherine Shin?
I submitted it to market access.
Okay. Ruby, he's working on it. Okay, so you do a search here for, let's see, you have to type in the city. In this case, this the city does not, like Austin does not require a blanket building and construction bond. See, like for example, El Paso does require one. So let's see here. Let's just type in construction bond.
Yes. I'm hoping that the market access bill is fine.
Contractor's license.
Yeah, we're just waiting for the carrier to finalize it.
What county is it in?
Travis.
Travis. Texas Insurance Agency. There's no specific one for your area, so let me see here. So there's one that's like your contractor license, general use. Excludes bonds where the obligee is a state. Wait, let's go back. Okay, so let's preview this real quick.
So if the so for example in El Paso you mentioned that is they require it in your city, but in Austin if it doesn't pull up on the list, does that mean it's not required?
Yeah, it's not required to operate in your area. That's crazy, dude.
So I guess they couldn't get it if it's not required.
I don't know if they couldn't get it. I think you would have to look at like what type of work are they doing? Like for example, we have what's called a blanket building and construction bond. It's not the same for every county.
Oh.
Yeah, and so basically right here, this bond form, for example, let's say for Horizon City, which is just outside of El Paso, says the condition of the above obligation is such that whereas the principal, in this case the insured, is engaged or intends to engage in the business of contracting or subcontracting for the erection, alteration, repair, removal, demolition, use, and occupancy of buildings or construction of buildings, structures and systems, or installation and maintenance of electrical, gas, mechanical, and plumbing systems as provided in zoning ordinance 01002, blah, blah, blah. So this one actually protects, the person that they're working for or doing the work for, in the case of any of those types of operations. Let me see. Austin, Texas.
We just got the documents from just 2 hours ago.
Well, I don't know why Ruby was asking. She was just asking.
She got the email from the lender.
Yeah, because the only one that, if you type in Austin, is the right of way. So let's see here, building. Beaumont building contract. Yeah, interesting. We'll have to see like what kind of bond can protect the contractor and how would it be contract. The only thing I can think of would be like this general use one, but it doesn't really cover that. It says principal has been or is about to be granted a license or permit to do business as by the obligee. Provided, however, this bond shall continue in force. Blah, blah, blah. Okay. Okay, here we go. Well and truly to be paid, we bind ourselves. Yeah, it's just saying operating, to do business as, and then that contractor's business name. So weird. I don't know if there's really much that will actually protect clients like they do, like they're protected here. in El Paso. I'm sure there is, but I'm not seeing it there on that list.
Okay. My last question I have on my list is if you were like, you thinking back to when you first started doing the commercial side of the business, what would you tell a new agent, or maybe what would you tell yourself as a new agent getting into commercial to get started and ramp up and
so
better
honesty honesty is the best policy, man. I mean, it's easy. Even for me when I first started, or even when I was like a couple years in, dude, to feel like you might be out of your league with a certain client or business or whatever. So honesty is number one. Like, yes, there are going to be clients that do get turned off by your potential inability to know the answer to every question. But there are going to be those clients that will still give you a chance because you are upfront with them about that, I don't know, whatever you want to say, lack of, answer or knowledge right on the spot, right? Because the worst thing you can do is fake it till you make it in the commercial insurance, and then a claim happen and you be totally wrong.
Gotcha.
I mean, honestly, that's the case with anything, but especially commercial insurance. You will lose credibility so fast versus like on the personal lines. I mean, there's so many personal lines clients, but business owners talk to each other, man. And the word gets around really fast. Like, if someone gets screwed out of a couple $100,000 type of loss, well, because of your inability to be humble and tell them, I don't have the answer right now. Let me get it for you. Let me make sure what I tell you is accurate. They're going to respect that so much more. Obviously, they'll respect it even more if you can be quick about it, just because, well, efficiency is everything, no matter if it's an emergency situation or not. Usually, most of the time, it's not. So when you give it to them like it is, like you're pressed for time because, oh, shit, I got to get this to you right away.
Right.
Then that's when things happen. And that's when, what's it called? That's when, clients will trust you better. Period. Whether you're just starting out, doing a lot of commercial, or whether you've been doing it for a long time. Like, I still check everything. I tell them, like, look, I'm not the professional at this when it comes to, let's say, questions about a claim situation. I'm like, I'm not an adjuster. So I will assist you. I will tell you what, we've issued and what I expect to be covered, but that doesn't mean that what I'm saying is an admission of coverage or commitment.
Right.
But that's what's written here, so we can safely assume that, at least for now. But once you file the claim is when you're really going to know. And if what they're saying might seem like bogus or lies, well, then you have a potential case, and we can, I can help you navigate that.
Right.
But when you're honest like that, you get way more respect and just opportunities from business owners that are going to give you shotgun business. Like what I did was, for this client that will potentially have a claim, their parts damaged a couple of the water treatment machines at an oil rig type of location in Midland, Odessa. I don't know the exact numbers, but they're thinking it's going to be equate around like $1 million. It's going to be like $1 million loss.
Wow.
And so I drafted up a document to at least reassure not only my clients, but the people that they're dealing with, their client, that they do have coverage. These are their limits. These are their policy. This is the claims number. This is their policy number. If you feel like you need to make a claim, you can do so, or I can assist in the process. And I basically just signed that document, boom, turned it in. They were so impressed with that process that is why I have potential and in plan meeting to meet with them next week and drive out there and potentially earn their business on the insurance. Because my clients tried to get me in the door with them and say, look, this is what he did for us. And he was like, what, your agent this is impressive, that kind of thing. It's just do honest work, man. Just do the right thing for the client.
That makes sense.
Totally unexpected, but I'll welcome it, man.
All day. All day.
Yeah.
Okay. I like it. Okay, brother. I appreciate that.
Yeah, man. And then of course, like I said, we could do like a follow-up call, or you can hit me up anytime, any questions you have, man. I feel like, even though there are a lot of commercial specific agencies out there, there's still a lot of opportunity, a lot of underserved clients for sure. And my processes aren't necessarily the end all be all, but just, if you follow even some of the stuff you're doing here, I mean, you'll be producing commercial insurance like no other, bro.
For sure. Awesome. I appreciate that. Any other tips or documents that you have for me?
Let me just make sure. I think I delivered what I was planning on. Oh yeah, I think I got you everything. The only other thing I would mention is that when you speak to Peter, if you end up buying leads from him, is just do me a big favor and just tell him, hey, Uli sent me your way. He showed me what you've done for him, and I want to see if I can order some leads in my area. And he'll be like, oh, sweet, and he'll probably give you a deal or something.
Nice. That'll work.
Yeah.
That'll work, definitely. Okay. I appreciate that, brother.
Yeah, man. Anything you need, dude, just hit me up. And I sent you the email address on the Messenger.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah, so whenever you get a chance for that, man, I know you're good for it, so no rush.
Most
But appreciate you, buddy.
Appreciate you, brother.
We'll be in touch, man. You have a good one. And like I said, any questions, bro, just hit me up, dude.
Will do. Hey, you have a good weekend, my friend.
You too, man. Take care.
Later.
Bye.